All right. What is up, everyone? We got a lot to talk about today. Injury updates galore for Yankees and the Mets. A lot of stuff you don't want to hear early on, but we'll get to it. I got some fan questions. I got a guest coming in by the name of Smith Brickner. He is a scout for Baseball Prospectus. He's going to talk to us about Yankees and Mets prospects. Going to bounce a few other things off him as well. So, soft intro here, around 10 to 15 minutes. Then he's going to pop in. So, I'm going to get this link everywhere so everyone could start watching it, and we'll see what happens out there. So, Yankees, it's the big news. It's definitely there's two things. It's Giancarlo Stanton's injury. The guy cannot catch a break with these injuries still. Just the same day, different day, same stuff for Giancarlo, unfortunately. So right now it's two tennis elbows, and it's really just a bad situation. He has no timetable to return. Opening day is definitely in doubt. And I think that's bad because several reasons. One, since they lost Soto, they really need him to be lining up protection. And he's not going to be there for a while, potentially. Because with Stan, it always lingers. Like, it's never as easy and clean as you think it's going to be. And you could say he rehabs quick, but when he did that in 2023, he was terrible. He was a negative zero point 0.8 WAR. And yeah, he's good for the playoffs. It's great, but like the Yankees need the lineup depth this year. They have 7 out of 9 hitters basically. So that's what's going on. And okay, sorry everyone, we're back. A little technical thing there, but now I will get the link out and we can share this. Sorry about that. Clicked the wrong button there. Not great, but what are we going to do? We're going to roll forward. So the stand situation is troubling because the Yankees have really bad lineup depth. Um, and it's like they haven't done a good job to replace it either. And they only have like DH options are limited. Like you're looking at Ben Rice and possibly Dom Smith. And the other issue is that they've seemed reluctant to do anything else because they're $5 million over the luxury tax, and Stroman's still on the team, and that's unacceptable that they're using that as an excuse, like I've said. And that's like what they've been doing, unfortunately. But anyway, I digress. We'll get to the questions, and they're all valid, of course. I'm gonna try to put this on my story as well, so more people could see it, and we'll get there with everything. But I'm gonna try to put this on. That's what story we're gonna do with that, and I'm looking forward to everything that's gonna happen today as we go forward with that. So let me look at some questions here for the Yankees, and I do have a couple here. One of them was about Carlos Correa, and I will talk about Correa and the Yankees. And I don't think there's much to talk about, unfortunately, because I don't think it's a match for several different reasons. So let's just pretend for a minute that the Yankees were willing to take on his salary, which they're not, obviously. But in the world that they were, he has a no trade clause. And the other problem is that he's very injury prone, and the Yankees have enough injury problems on their hands. I haven't even gone to the updates yet. It's a huge one with Giancarlo, and we'll get to more of them later. But Carlos Correa and the Yankees are in a match for several reasons. There's no way Hal's approving that. Correa also stated he doesn't want to be traded right now, and he enjoys Minnesota for better or worse. And right now, it certainly looks like worse, but he's going to stick with it. And like I said, injuries are a massive, massive concern with him. He's failed 2 physicals. He never plays a full season. The Yankees don't need that anymore. I mean, is he way better than anything they have now? Obviously, at third base. It's not even a competition. It's not even a question, but it's not that feasible, unfortunately. That question was asked. Okay, my Twitter is giving me fits. Great. I wanted to give the good answers. Okay, if it's going to load, that'll be wonderful. But okay, that question was asked by Postparm Volpe, who listens to the pod. Shout out to him on Twitter. Eric Bledsoe fan also asked me Arenado or Correa. Well, I just answered my concerns with Correa, and unfortunately, I don't think that's going to be erased by anything really. So the problem is with Correa, it's like injuries and performance, unfortunately. So yeah, well, actually, performance is fine, but he gets injured too much. And if there's a guy who can handle the Bronx, it's definitely him. That is the one good thing I would say, but the problem is he's just such a liability, like with his health. Like that's really the number one problem with him. So that's one question answered. Another question answered that I will ask is because Stroman, Serum, Union, and Queens, and that's because Frankie Montas went down. And Montas, like I said, was a terrible signing at the time. It's a terrible signing now, and it's going to age as a terrible signing. 2 years for $34 million is a waste of money. He's not a $17 million pitcher. He's barely a $10 million pitcher. He gets hurt all the time, and when he does pitch, he's not even that good. He's out for 6 to 8 weeks throwing with the last strain, and we know Sevy went through that. Clark had that. He missed like 3 months, so that's a big problem. He's going to be out a long time, and that's going to be money down the drain for the Mets. That was a really bad signing, and I still don't understand it, and nothing anyone says can help me understand it. Like, they cheaped out on the pitching and tried to find lightning in the bottle again, but that was not it. Now, with that being said, do I think Marcus Stroman's a fit for the Mets? No, I really don't, because they've said they're not going to do it. There was definitely some stuff that went on there before he left. Andy Martino said no, he's a good Yankees and Mets reporter. Thank you, bro. I really appreciate that. Now that I got everything together, it took me a minute. But, yeah, so, like, that's not really a fit. Stroman's not going to go to the Mets. That's not happening. But what might happen, though, is a Jose Quintana reunion. Now, that is very much on the table. My buddy Pat Ragazzo's been talking about that. There is mutual interest. He might only need a 1-year deal. He pitched well for him last year. Yes, I know he's 36, but in a pinch, he is the best guy to do a replacement because they can't really do a trade because let's say they want to get Dylan Cease. The Padres are going to hold them over a barrel for Dylan Cease because they know that the Mets need him and their price is going to be was high anyway. They also got Nick Pivetta, and it's just something to me like that doesn't seem really logical. So for them to do right now because the Padres are going to want too much, and the Mets haven't really made that big deal yet to get prospects. Like they haven't really given up a huge amount of prospects. There we go. They haven't given up a huge amount of prospects to get that big player yet under David Stearns. That's what I would say. So he has to show he's willing to do that. He has not shown that yet. And unless that changes, I don't expect Dylan Cease to be a Met right now. Now, if the Padres fall out of contention, is that a different discussion at the trade deadline? Yeah, sure. And the Mets are going to need a starting pitcher. Like we already know they're going to need one, especially since they're going with a 6-man rotation. You'll get Griffin Cannon. You look at Paul Blackburn as people that can fill the void in that 6 and that 5-6 hole. And Clay Holmes is a 4, which I also don't really like. But he is throwing a changeup. Maybe they'll go better than I think. So, you know what? I'll give that one a chance. I definitely think I like it better than Montas because at least he's pitching, thankfully. But anyway, more importantly, that's just a little house cleaning right there. And then I'm going to go over some other Met stuff too, like Jose Iglesias. Should he be back? They're saying he's not going to be, but then he's meeting with them still, and he's not. Nick Madrigal gets signed, kind of feels like the replacement for him in a sense. So that's something that you're going to want to look at too. I would have took Iglesias over Madrigal, but maybe they don't want to spend as much. They're trying to save somewhere. They're like $330 payroll overall right now. So the Yankees are 305. Mets are like 330. Yeah, Yankees 305. So That's what I would say. We'll see how that goes. So that's something. Yes, it will be live stream. Yes, my buddy Smith Brinker is coming on soon, and let me try to hit these points quick here. Let me see. Okay, I did good Stroman Queens. All right, so this question was interesting. It's from Batch Score. It was like, why does the average fan read enough to understand the teams calculate to underspend on payroll, even the wealthy teams in that payroll and ticket price are not related? Well, yes, everyone tries to go under what they plan. Even the Mets said they went over. Payroll, ticket prices, it's all different. Like, the fans get pissed because you charge a lot and then you don't give that back to the team. But like, it's the owner's decision to decide what they want to do with the profits, obviously. Like, a ticket price doesn't mean you're going to have a high payroll automatically. Like, it could be vice versa. I mean, low prices could be low payrolls, maybe, but it's not always all as simple as you would think. There's a lot of inner workings that go here. Like, the Yankees only putting like 40% back into the team, but they used to do like 55%. That's something. So that's what I would say with that. And there's a few other show notes here that I'm going to go with. I did talk about Montas. Okay. So there is another Mets injury update that we need to get to as well. It's about Nunez on the Mets, the pitcher, the reliever. And then I'm going to do a Mets projection as well as for my buddy James Gordon here. So let me see the injury situation. Okay. So it was put out on the 15th that they don't have like an estimation. They got to keep him healthy. He's a big piece of the bullpen. And he sprained part of the prominent mass in his forearm. He missed a month. He made a single appearance and went back on the injured list. Yes. And then I'm trying. Now they're getting back to us like a rehab statement, and we'll see. In the range of outcomes, it's our hope to get him ready in the trap. But we're not going to force him to something he's not ready for. Okay. So he hasn't thrown YBP yet. This was 4 days ago. He did through a bullpen session, though, a second of the spring. Their goal is to have him ready for opening day, and there's a chance he might need an extra week or two, and they're not going to rush him. Okay, so that's a consensus with him. It's a real good reliever for them, and he'll help extend their bullpen whenever they have him back healthy. All right, so Yankees have a lot of injuries. This is like a laundry list. Gary Phillips lays it out for us, and I know most of these. So Clark Schmidt has a cranky back, apparently, whatever that means. Marcus Stroman starting the first game, which is obviously going to be controversial because everything going on with him. But I'm going to say this about Stroman. I understand where he's coming from. First of all, he has the option. He's never pitched in the bullpen before. He's not really a guy whose stuff translates well to a bullpen. Then if you do keep him in the bullpen, it's an extra spot that someone else can't have, and they're already like really fighting for spots. So it is problematic for sure. Is he going to end up being traded before opening day? I would probably lean towards yes, but it's not like a slam dunk like I would have thought a few months back. Just because time's ticking, you never know who can go down, and that's what we're gonna do. All right, so we got Smith Brinker coming in. He's a baseball prospectus scout. So here we go, buddy. What's up?
Julian, how you doing, man?
Good, backstory here. We connected at the winter meeting, started talking about some Yankee prospects and a few other things that have been upsetting lately with this team. So how have you been? How's the offseason treating you?
It's good. I'm glad that we're at the tail end of it. There's enough yelling into the cloud moments for the off season, so ready to finally either be proven right or wrong. That's the beauty of baseball starting.
I know there's so many injuries. I'm going through the laundry list for the Yankees. I did talk about Stan. We'll definitely circle back to him later. Trent Grisham had a hammy, but now he seems like okay or whatever. And then Peter is throwing again, I think, but he had a shoulder. Jake Cousins might miss opening day. It's probably the most concerning pitching one right now. Clark Schmidt kind of just seems like back spasms almost. Like, I don't know if it's going to be that big of a thing, but we'll see. And then the one I really want to dive in with you about is Chase Hampton. That's a devastating one to me. Like, he might be heading towards Tommy John. So, like, what are your thoughts on what he's dealt with all these injuries lately?
It's brutal, man. It's the second consecutive spring training with forearm issues, and it seems like there is UCL damage this time, which you never like to hear. It's really unfortunate because he's one of the most gifted throwers, not just in the minor leagues for the Yankees, but in their entire organization, top down. You're talking about a guy that had a plus ride fastball that he could leverage up in the zone, and he had a lot of other breakers and off-speed pitches that complemented it quite well. It was a really good north to south kind of movement profile that he threw for strikes. The only problem that we saw was that he had a velocity bump immediately after joining the Yankees, and you never know how those turn out. If that's sticky, if they suddenly get hurt. Unfortunately, it looks like with that velocity bump, Hampton did get hurt. So that is, of course, the risk that you run with those kinds of guys. So definitely unfortunate, a big hit to their depth. And frankly, I think we'll get more into the depth conversation later with the rest of the team, but that's a big blow for them because I think they were counting on him to be probably their 7th or 8th starter.
Yeah, and this is a guy I got to speak to one time. He did join a podcast I had in the past with a good friends of mine, and I'm definitely upset for him. And hopefully, if it does have to go through that, which it probably does, if it's UCL twice, it's never a good thing. Then you'll see him back in like 27-ish, I guess, like maybe late 26. He's 23 right now, so he'll still have his youth on his side. He'll be like 25 by the time he's fully recovered, maybe if they go down that road. So it's not all lost for him, but it's a huge hit because, like you said, not only is the major leagues thin these days, the system's also thin too now, especially with even some of the pitchers, even though they drafted a bunch of guys. So it's definitely a tough one.
Yeah, I think fans should prepare themselves for Carlos Carrasco July starts, which, not great.
That's not anything anyone wants to hear in February. So hopefully Will Warren can step up. He might be the 6th guy if Stroman sticks around, but we'll see about that. Another guy who's banged up too a little bit. What did you make of the whole Austin Wells situation? That seemed kind of pretty strange to me, but seems like a lot to do about nothing, honestly.
A lot of nothing. It's spring training. We're dying for news at this point. So
that's so true, yeah. And then Everson Pereira is trying to work through some stuff with his UCL too, and they're saying that he can hit but not fields yet. If Trent Grisham goes down, do you think he could be like the 4th or 5th option maybe, or do you look for Brendan Davis to maybe jump up if he stays healthy?
Yeah. I mean, if you, it's funny because Brendan Davis has injury issues, strikeout issues, but has big time raw power. Everson Pereira has less big time raw power, more injury history, and less production. So I'd probably just go with Brendan Davis. Brendan Davis was at once upon a time a top 30 prospect in the game. I think you'd probably just rather see what you have in him. I still think that there's a little bit more thump there. There were some encouraging signs in AAA last year for him. So I don't know. I think I'd rather go with Brendan Davis, which I don't know if that's an indictment on Everson Pereira, but it might be. I've never really been in on that profile. It's sort of a stretch in center field defensively anyways.
Yeah,
probably best fit in a corner outfield spot. You can't play right field with that good arm. But yeah, I mean, Everson Pereira probably just going to be a corner outfield guy, and I fear that he's going to be a quad A guy. I've never really been that high on him compared to the consensus.
Yeah, you did tell me that when we were speaking a few months back or whatever, and I think he's good, but the problem is he does whip too much. But when he makes contact, it's good contact, but like it's too infrequent. But if he could cut down those strikeouts somehow, then it'd be better. But it's a tough thing sometimes.
Man, we've been saying that for years, Julian. As scouts,
true.
Yeah, there just comes a point in time where you've got too much information to really suggest something different happening unless it's a drastic swing change. And we haven't seen that. And, honestly, the Yankees, I don't think have shown as much success on the hitting front as they have the pitching front in past years from a developmental side. So,
yeah, that's a good point. Their pitching seems to be ahead of their hitting these days in the minors, even though they're cycling through a lot of pitchers and all these trades. So, we'll see what they do. So let's move forward a little bit. let's go back to Giancarlo. I'm actually like really concerned about this. I'm not like downplaying this one because first of all, like he hasn't swung a bat in a month. That's a terrible sign. We know how fragile he is, and like this is like a new one too. Like it's normally his legs, now it's like elbows. Like he played through it in October apparently, and we couldn't even tell. And now they're giving no timetable. They have no depth behind him really. So like, do you think Ben Rice is good enough to step up and be the DH if he's out?
I do. I've always been the high guy, conversely, on Ben Rice. On the 2080 scale, I ranked his ceiling outcome, as a 60 because you're talking about really excellent swing decisions, really good at not swinging outside the zone. He's got average bat speed, but really good strength to back up. He's got a really thick lower half that he's able to successfully leverage in his swing. He didn't really show major platoon splits in AAA or in the rest of the minors. He did show some ability to hit heat up in the zone and hit stuff diving down. The one thing that I would be on the lookout for him is, can he hit pitches that are, diving in towards his hands? That's the one question I have, and that's really where he was exposed after about a few weeks in the major leagues. I think he can be a very good player, but I mean, having chronic elbow soreness in both elbows is pretty crazy if you think about it. And the fact that his whole profile is predicated on bat speed. He has the best bat speed in baseball per Baseball Savant. He doesn't really have much else working for him at this point. He's 35, not a runner at all, not a fielder at all. Really has lost some of that plate discipline because guys are challenging him in the zone a little bit more because the bat speed, while still the best, is not quite what it used to be. So guys don't really feel like they have to tinker outside the zone with him as much. So his walk rate's also gone down. So you're basically just hoping that he gets, at this point, 450 plate appearances with 20 home runs and a 290 on base percentage, which basically has been his baseline for the last 3 years. And that's assuming he comes back healthy and that this isn't a long-term issue. But chronic elbow issues in both elbows is not exactly a ringing endorsement.
And the also thing that is worse about it is like there's no surgery to get to clean it up apparently, unless it just like completely collapses, which is what they don't want. So like there's nothing seems too good about this. It seems like even if he does come back, he's gonna have to manage it. Like I don't know how long he's gonna be out for. Like I'm assuming he's gonna miss opening day. I'm gonna say I don't expect him to be in there on March 28th. I'd be surprised.
Yeah. I think you can see some Cody Bellinger at first base and as well as a result of what am I saying? I mean, they have Paul Goldschmidt, but the question then becomes who's going to be their DH. It probably is going to be Ben Rice.
You would think,
yeah. I mean,
a little Tom Smith action.
Yeah. I mean, that's where we are, and it's not even March, Julian.
It's not good. It's giving me 2023 vibes, which isn't great. But maybe Dom's better than those guys, hopefully. And it's funny because he was also a Yankee and a Met, so like he might we get on both sides. Same thing with Carrasco too now, and there's like 100% chance the Yankees are definitely seeing him as soon as they sign him. Like he's definitely gonna end up making starts somehow. Like I know how this team is. Like he's got to get through it somehow, especially if Stroman gets traded. Like it's inevitable.
Yeah, well, good luck trying to trade Marcus Stroman at this point. I mean, you can. There is a scenario where a team loses out on a starter. Let's say funny enough, the Cubs lose a starter. If you eat half the salary, maybe you get some sort of hitter. That's a best case scenario. I mean, Marcus Stroman is, I mean, he might be pretty done. And I think the rest of the league completely disinterested in him on a 1-year contract kind of tells you that.
Yeah, and the other problem is the option too, because if a team does somehow need him, then they need him for a third, and no one wants that. I think like if it wasn't the Mets, like if another team had the Montas situation, like maybe they could have got it there. Like Quintana might end up signing to fill the Mets void. Maybe I was discussing that before a little bit, but
I mean they made a good move earlier in the offseason by signing Griffin Canning to fill exactly that void if there is an injury. So the Mets kind of have that depth. at this point. And they also have Brandon Sproat in AAA, which I'm sure we'll get to him a little bit later.
For sure.
But they actually have some legitimate depth, whereas the Yankees, you're really hoping that every one of those five stays healthy. And as we know, that's almost never the case.
Yeah, I mean, if Stroman stays, it's at least better than having like some other options, I guess, that like we don't know about. Though I'd probably rather use Will Warren in certain
I
situations.
was just gonna say,
I think he should be the sixth if Stroman gets going.
For sure.
Maybe that's not. I wouldn't feel too bad about that. I feel like he can be better than what we saw last year.
I agree. I mean, I ranked him fairly aggressively, but Fangraphs just put him in their top 100 prospects, which I
did see
love.
that.
I love that call. I think Eric kind of aced that call. But you know, they've got some other guys like you could theoretically stretch out Yoendrys Gomez, but I mean, that's not a given.
Yeah.
Again, we're gonna talk about Carlos Carrasco for the second time on this podcast.
He's
so
gonna find his way to starts. We're gonna look back
he's
and just
just
be like,
going
whenever
to.
his Yankees debut happens, we're gonna like play this tape and be like, yeah, we tried to tell everyone we're sorry. But
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
he is a great story. He's a great guy, and like he's been through a lot. So like if it does happen, hopefully he can pitch to the best of his abilities. It's just that he's really up there now, and like the arm's definitely worn down a little bit too. He's had his injuries, so I definitely respect what he's done. Like he is a quality veteran.
Sure. Yeah, just probably not someone that I want starting games for me at this point. That's
Yeah,
all.
completely understandable.
Like I would personally rather take a guy that not many people know about, but I'd rather start Cam Schlittler over him.
Oh yes, I like
At this
Cam
point,
too. He's been getting a lot of hype.
Yeah, rightfully so.
And like you mentioned Gomez before, I don't even know if he's going to make the team because he's out of options. That's the other problem. He might not even make it.
Yeah, I don't know.
I like him too, but like I don't know if they're going to push him through.
I mean, his fastball velocity just has not come back since his Tommy John several years ago. And we're at that point now where 2024 should have been the year where everything came together for him. It didn't. So I just don't know what we're looking at there. He's got a plus slider, but the shape of his fastball isn't exceptional to kind of write off the so-so velocity, which is frankly below average velocity in the bullpen. So he kind of needs to be a starter for that profile to work. And I don't know if that's going to work. Be very curious to see how they treat him in spring training.
Yeah, it's not like he can really start games for the Yankees with the way it's set up right now. Even if Stroman goes, he's probably your seventh starter in theory. If you think about like maybe there's still other guys maybe in that mix as well. So let's get to prospects for the Yankees. Who excites you the most? Maybe some guys under the radar, or like how about this year and for the past this year? So maybe give me like 2 or 3 names.
Yeah. So an underrated guy for this year, who's not really underrated, but I just have to talk about him is Spencer Jones.
Okay.
I'm going to talk about him in the fact that I think he could contribute this year. I know that sounds crazy for a guy who struck out 36% of the time in Double-A last year, but the tools are so exceptionally great with Spencer Jones. He's got 4+ tools right now. He's got a plus arm, plus defender in center field, plus runner at 6'6", and he has 80 grade raw power. Some of the best raw power in all of minor league baseball. Literally the only thing that's holding him back is the strikeout rate at this point. But I've made this case before. There have been guys that have produced, let's call it a 115, 120 WRC plus, striking out 30% of the time, and they don't have the tools that Spencer Jones has. If he's able to just get his major league strikeout rate to 30%, which honestly I think is doable because he's very athletic, and you and I have talked about this offline in the past, he wasn't a full-time hitter until he made his junior year at Vanderbilt in 2022. He's not been a full-time hitter for that long. And so for him to be producing as much as he has with such limited reps, put into perspective, he's got as much plate appearances between college and the pros as Xavier Isaac does in the Rays organization. And everyone ranks him 70 spots higher in lists because he's 21 compared to Spencer Jones being 24. They both have the same amount of raw power, and they've also been hitters in professional or college ranks for as long. But we don't give Spencer Jones that credit because we just expect him to be developed at 24. So there's a little bit of a longer leash here for a guy that's been a hitter for such a short period of time. There were also some things under the radar that people I don't really think are factoring here. There were some situations with his hitting coaches throughout the course of the season that not many people know about. He changed hitting coaches throughout the course of the season, and he looked to finally find his footing in August and wasn't striking out as much either. And we've seen some really encouraging videos of him in the batting cages this year, using a load kind of similar to Aaron Judge with maybe slightly different hand posture and
I
hand
did
load.
notice that.
Yeah. So, look, if he's able to get that strikeout rate to even 30% compared to 36, he's going to be a star in the way that Ellie De La Cruz is. Ellie De La Cruz struck out 30% of the time, and no one denies that he's a star. He plays a premium position, great runner. It's a massive human being. Spencer Jones is basically that, but in outfield and maybe a grade less of speed. Everything else is almost identical.
That's actually a really good way to put it. Like, I did see him steal his 40th base 2 years ago, and the fact that he can run that well for his size, he's like a gazelle. I look at him as a gazelle out there. Like, it's nuts. And Ellie's a nice comp. I see what you're going for there. I could definitely see a lot of similarities there. And if he can get anywhere close to that, then Yankee fans are going to be really excited.
Yeah, I think there's still reason to be excited. We're holding the line here. We ranked him second at Baseball Prospectus, and part of me wanted to put him ahead of Jason, but I couldn't do it. I was going to get enough flack as is from the staff, so I couldn't pull that one off. And then a guy that's a little bit more under the radar as well is Thatcher Hurd. He's a guy that was a mid-round pick for the Yankees last year at LSU. High-profile prep pitcher that started at UCLA, transferred to LSU. He's got a big-time arm. He's got a high-release slot. He's got exceptional pitch repertoire. We're talking about a rising fastball, plus rise, plus velocity as a starter that he complements with a really exceptional slider and curve. He does have a changeup as well. The problem for him is that he will change his arm slot pitch by pitch. It's easy to pick up. So if he's able to alter his release height so it's the same across his entire repertoire, and if he's able to just stay healthy, I think there's a case that he and Bryce Cunningham are going to be very, very high on the Yankees prospect list, even by the midseason.
Yeah, he's an intriguing third rounder. The Yankees load up on pitchers. It's cool to hear that because, I'm trying to learn more about the guys we drafted because it's kind of tough to see how they're going to translate from college to the minors and stuff. Where do you think he'll start, like Tampa or Hudson or something?
Yeah, I mean, he's an SEC pitcher. Same thing with Cunningham, who I've also heard equally very good reports on so far. And you know me, I'll tell you if it's bad reports, but I've had very good reports.
You told me about Everson before, so yeah.
I've had really good reports on both of them.
Okay.
SEC guys. Now, granted, they did start Cade Smith in low A last year, and he was an SEC Mississippi State guy the year prior. 50-50. I mean, I'd like to see them in Tampa for the sole purpose of just getting the TrackMan data, the StatCast, but so selfishly, but there's a chance they start in high A.
All right. What are your thoughts on Hess, the first round pick?
Yeah, I like him. He's interesting because you would think that someone taken in the first round has higher upside than the guys taken behind him. I'm not sure that's the case though.
Yeah.
I do think he's got a good fastball. I think he's got a really good curveball. His slider's a little bit more of a question mark, but if you're talking about just the top two pitchers in a repertoire, Hess is the guy that you would go with of those three. But if you're looking at the completeness of a repertoire, I think Hurd and Cunningham actually have a case for a better overall repertoire. So really just depends. Are you looking for two potentially elite pitches or 3 or 4 plus or better pitches? At this point, I'm going to go with those other guys, but I still do like Hess. I do think he's a guy that the Yankees took, understanding that they were going to make some adjustments to his delivery to clean up his arm path, to shorten it so he could throw more strikes. If he throws more strikes, it'll be a top 100 prospect.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I was a little bit blown off guard by it when they first made the pick. I definitely wasn't expecting that in the first round, which I think you weren't either, based on what you just told me. So I guess
No, I wasn't. But at the same time, I like it
okay,
because to me, like that's telling me that they're not looking at the surface level stats. They're looking at things where the analytics and player development departments are talking to each other. And they're saying, the scouts are basically saying, we noticed these things about this player. The player development staff then has to determine, are the things they need to work on areas where we are strong at developing. I think that's the case for why they took the guys like Ben Hess, Thatcher Hurd, Bryce Cunningham, guys that underperformed in college that have very strong tools, raw tools that need to be developed with professional tutelage. The Yankees, like I said, are, I think, leagues ahead with their pitching compared to their hitting development. I think that's the play.
all right. So let's go back to the majors now. The third base situation is an absolute nightmare. I'm not going to sugarcoat this; it's absolutely terrible.
Yeah.
What they did here is embarrassing on all fronts. We're trying to even see what Mayhew has left. Is like a disservice to everyone involved. Is he going to get lucky? Like maybe. Do I think he confidence? No. Oswaldo is okay, but he's more of a utility player. He's not supposed to be starting at third base. Peraza, as we know, is on his last life, out of options. So, I know you've expressed your displeasure with this. So now, fully unleashed on the podcast, and let everyone know how you feel.
I mean, you really have to talk about the whole offseason before you can even talk about third base. I mean, let's think if we really break this down, this
All
is
right,
what
let's
the
go.
Yankees offseason boiled down to. They lost a top 3 hitter in baseball because they weren't willing to pay an extra $5 million a year.
Yeah, not good.
Inconceivable. You then replace those guys. You then replace that top 3 hitter with Cody Bellinger, whose bat speed has completely evaporated, who you got in a salary dump from another team that traded for a guy in Kyle Tucker that you probably should have been more in on to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
You then sign a first baseman after watching 35-year-old Anthony Rizzo look really old. You signed a guy in Paul Goldschmidt who's closer to AARP eligibility than he is his actual professional baseball debut, which is inconceivable to me.
Kind of like
Even
that one
if,
either.
if he's able to just be a league average hitter, I would say that's a good contract. I'm not even saying it's a bad signing, but what I don't appreciate is their attempt at trying to shape this offseason as they did a really good job of rebounding, because I don't think Bellinger was a good trade. I think Goldschmidt was a mediocre signing compared to what was available in the market, and they
Agreed.
overpaid for Max Fried. They paid
Yeah.
8 years and 30-something million a year for a very good pitcher who's entering his age 31 season. And what's frustrating is that it wouldn't be as frustrating, Julian, if you knew that there was more bullets coming.
Yeah, that's the problem I have too, Smith.
Exactly, because you're getting to a point now where the current salaries that they have are going to be a hindrance on future signings, right? Like,
Yeah,
are they going to sign Vladimir Guerrero Jr. next
probably
offseason?
not.
No, because we signed to Max Fried last year. Those are the kinds of conversations. They're not like the Mets and the Dodgers anymore, in that they might make a mistake or they might overpay for a guy, but they're going to still go out and get all the guys they need to. The
Right.
Yankees don't think like that anymore. And so because of that, they were content with getting guys who frankly are on the back end of their careers. And then, oh, by the way, they did absolutely nothing to address third base. Julian, their their current third base competition is between Oswaldo Cabrera, Oswald Peraza, and DJ LeMahieu. That would be the worst third base triage in Major League Baseball by a very wide margin. And I'm not saying that Brendan Rodgers would have made this team significantly better, but he'd probably be the best of those 4. He just signed a minor league deal with the Astros. The Yankees didn't even sign him. So I have no idea what they're doing here. I don't know if there's any trade on the horizon. I simply don't understand how a team that is trying to win a World Series is okay with going with this trio of guys into a regular season. It absolutely blows my mind.
I have I couldn't agree more. It's just like, first of all, we've talked about this too. They are $5 million over the luxury tax. What's the point of being $5 million over? If you can't trade Marcus Stroman, guess what? You're stuck at $5 million. You're not getting any of that back. And if you wait till the deadline, you're not going to be able to get enough off his money anyway. And it's probably not going to work out. So here's my problem too. They could have even did something like that. Do they go for Arenado? I have no idea. And that's another bad contract. And then you're having more issues that you're talking about if they do decide to do that, unless St. Louis pays a lot of it off.
Right. Then they're going to next offseason. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
I would simply take it because it's better than what we have now. But again, then you might be hurting yourself down the line if you want to get a Kyle Tucker. And that's who I think they will go for. And I think next year, I don't know. Well, the problem is if they go over the tax this year, would they go over 3 years in a row? Then you don't know. If they set it back this year, then they probably go over next year. But this is the thing we shouldn't have to worry about. But he goes back and forth each year, and you don't know what he's gonna do.
So I made this point to your point. I made a point on Twitter a few days ago. But if you add up the salaries of Cody Bellinger, Paul Goldschmidt, Carlos Rodon, Marcus Stroman, and Aaron Hicks, who's by the way still in the books. Because
that's a problem.
Because they wanted to reduce the AAV. They're also doing this with DJ LeMahieu. I forgot him.
And
you add all those salaries together. Yeah, not even including Giancarlo. That's $121 million of commitments right there.
And you
I said it this way recently too. And my colleague Jared Seidler's also made this point at Baseball Prospectus, where when it comes to the high-profile signings, the Aaron Judges and Garrett Coles, they have aced both of those contracts. Both of those contracts have been spectacular, no questions asked. Mm-hmm. They've done really well in the waiver wire, right? They got Clay Holmes a few years ago. Jake Cousins was another guy that came out of nowhere. Luis Heel they developed.
Sam Hill.
Yeah, exactly. So Ian Hamilton, another guy. Luke Weaver, right?
They do good there, yeah.
Exactly. They do really, really well. Tim Hill, you mentioned it. So they're very good at the lower tier of their roster. So the high and the low, they do a really good job of actually building their roster. It's that intermediate roster space where they're kind of a mess, and they have been for a while. And again, because they're not willing to spend any more, which again, to your point, makes no sense since they're already over that top tier of the luxury tax. This is the predicament we find ourselves in. I never for a second thought that this was going to be the trio going into spring training, but it's where we are.
Yeah, it's really bad, dude. You have me thinking about Jose Iglesias. He might be an upgrade at this point. Would you even bring him in at this point? I know there's a lot of stuff going on.
I mean, it's funny. There are people that have come out and there are people that legitimately think he's going to land a multi-year deal. I can't ever foresee a situation where that happens because although he had a really good season, a lot of that was, fortune with balls in play. His BABIP was incredibly high.
Yeah.
I will say he is a very good defensive third baseman. He's a good defensive shortstop even to this day. So he would add a lot of value defensively in the way that Gio Urshela did back in 2019, 2020. Yeah. But I mean, again, the pickings are very thin right now. And
that's why we're bringing them up. We got to talk about it because he's about the last guy standing. And I'll tell you what, I mean, he does hit lefties really well. The Yankees couldn't hit lefties last year. So that's another thing that
yeah, I mean, it's tough. I mean, if you look at roster resources available, third baseman, get ready for this. Whit Merrifield, Matt Duffy, Miguel Sano, Joey Wendell, Nick Senzel, and Aledmys Diaz.
Yeah, I think I'd rather Jose Iglesias out of all those guys you just gave me.
I probably would too, and that's pretty incredible, man. I don't understand it, and unless they're working on look, we don't know what the trade conversations are. they are known for making unexpected trades. Like that is a thing, right? Like we weren't expecting the Josh Donaldson trade that came out of seemingly thin air.
It's a terrible one, but I get your example.
Right, but like it's the idea that like they have made these kinds of trades during spring training before. That is the only way I see this making any sense to this point. But with the information that we have, it doesn't make any sense.
And the problem is, like, I've been trying to figure this out for like months. Like, who's out there to trade for? Like, the options are so bare. Like, the elite third basemen aren't getting traded. Like, it's kind of a top heavy position. That's the other problem. Like, it's really a lot of good players, a lot of guys that aren't too good, and the guys in the middle have a lot of question marks.
Right. Like, you know, the Guardians, even if they have a bad season, I don't think they're trading Jose Ramirez.
That's
right?
the dream.
You know, the guy that actually makes some sense here is Alec Bohm.
Yeah, that's
you know, he's the guy that for some reason, I think I wonder if there's like some tension there in the clubhouse.
It could be a change of scenery type guy.
Right. And I'm not sure that he's exactly the most mature guy.
That's the
But
issue.
you also don't need him to be you don't need him to be that leader. You just need him to be basically the guy he was before he got injured last year, which was a very good above average hitter and above average defender at third base. That would be a significant upgrade for them.
Yeah, like I had Justin Shackle on last week, and I think we could agree on this. He was saying they need like a Gio Urshela type almost, like a guy to come out of nowhere like that, give like a 3 WAR maybe, like play some good defense, be like a league average bat, like something that could at least be better than what we're forced with now. Because I saw the Fangraphs projections and I kind of laughed at them. It said 2.9 WAR projection. That's not even close to being accurate. And it's also putting Chisholm over there too, which might not happen because they really like him better at second base. Unless they find the second baseman with him at third. At this point, I wouldn't be opposed to that either, but I don't think that's the route they're going to go.
Yeah, I mean, again, going back to roster resources free agent tracker, the second baseman, it's basically the same crop of players. They're just marking them as low second and third baseman. So again, it's Jose Iglesias plays second base. Like, okay, like I suppose that makes sense. I actually wouldn't hate that. I think that's a better fit for Jose Iglesias.
Yeah, if you want him a second, you can put him a second. I'm not going to be picky where he plays. I mean, at this point, I'll take him. I mean, it can't hurt. It definitely can't hurt. That's all I could say.
Right. And you know, again, like DJ LeMahieu shouldn't even be on this roster to begin with, but because they signed him to that long-term low AAV contract, this predicament they find themselves in is the exact reason why you don't make those kinds of signings. Because now you have DJ LeMahieu and Aaron Hicks on the books, whose salaries combined would have doubled the amount you would have had to pay more for Juan Soto. So
yeah, that's a great point, and that's why the free deal could be concerning too in a vacuum. Like it helps now, but they still didn't complete the job. So
yeah,
so like he's not going to be as useful as we would like him to be either. And they're going to have to win a lot of 2-1 games, a lot of 3-2 games. Like, it's going to be ugly, low-scoring games here. Like, this is not going to be pretty for a while. Like, they have 7 out of 9 hitters, and you still have question marks with some of the 7, too, honestly, at this moment in time.
Right. Like, are we 100% certain that Austin Wells is clearly a plus offensive contributor? I don't know. I do think he's a very good defensive catcher, which last year you would have never heard me say that. So,
yeah, I'm really proud of him.
I have to give him kudos because I never thought he was going to improve. And to my defense, he didn't. It wasn't until last year where he really took those steps.
No, you're right. I saw a lot of it too.
Yeah, like Jason Dominguez, like everyone calls him the Martian. Like, I don't know. It's a little unfair to call a 16-year-old and name him after a planet. Like, let's just not do that, please, because it's created these ridiculous expectations. As a scout, I see a guy who's an above average contributor. I don't see a superstar here in Jason Dominguez. And I think people need to accept that this is going to be a year of transition for him in the way that 2023 was for Anthony Volpe, who, by the way, Anthony Volpe, all the projections are claiming that he's going to be an above average hitter. I'm not sure. Excuse me. I'm not sure about that. Julian, are you?
You know how much I like him, but like I can't say with certainty that if I'm gonna be unbiased here, I can't say with certainty he's gonna be an above average hitter. I have more faith in Austin Wells' bat for sure. I think the stadium fits him really well. I'm really impressed with the defensive strides he made because I've seen it at a lot of levels and it really was ugly at certain situations. And he cleans up a lot of it to his credit. And a lot of people wanted to take him off catcher, and he's like, "No, I'm going to catch," and he did it. So that's really good. And if he can be an above average bat as a catcher with the defense he's playing, that's even better, honestly.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm going to talk about a guy that not many people know about right now. That if Giancarlo gets hurt, and the Yankees want to tinker with Austin Wells at DH, we could see a little bit of JC Escara at catcher.
Time. I do like this one. Let's go.
There's a lot of indicators here that he's a late bloomer, Julian. He has very interesting bat speed. Doesn't really walk. Doesn't really strike out a whole lot. Does take his fair share of walks, and he is a very good defensive catcher. I remember when I was talking to Yankees personnel when writing up the Yankees list, and they're like, Escara's too old to put on a prospect list, right? I was like, yes, 29 is way too old to put on a prospect list. But they really do like JC Escara, and I can see why. There's a lot of really interesting tools here. I know Roster Resource has Alex Jackson, who's an NRI, as the backup catcher right now on their projected bench. I wholeheartedly disagree with that. I think the Yankees told you what they think about JC Escara when they traded away Carlos Narvaez to the Red Sox and added JC Escara to the 40-man to protect him from the Rule 5 draft. There's a scenario where if Giancarlo's hurt and Austin Wells is playing DH, where JC Escara is the guy that's going to step up out of nowhere.
I have to say that makes me feel really good because I'm a huge fan of this kid. He's been such a crazy journey, a windy road. I do believe I've been telling everyone on the list that he's going to win the backup catcher job as well. And I also think that if the point you made is also very true, if Wells is up DH, he ends up catching more than we think. And hearing the stuff about his defense and like the ball, this K ratio, it's almost 1-to-1. I just checked and it was like 55 walks to 68 Ks. Like that's pretty good. Considering he hasn't played minor league ball in a couple of years, but this guy plays all the time too. Like he doesn't stop playing ball. Like he's playing in the Spanish leagues, he's playing independent ball. Like he's really gone through every level that he's had to get all the way back here. And the age is definitely crazy, but we've seen guys do it before that don't get going until like their late 20s or early 30s. Like it does happen a couple times.
Yeah, I mean he makes a lot of contact. He has interesting max exit velocities for a catcher, and max exit velocities are a really good barometer to gauge power when you don't have bat speed metrics like we don't in AAA. But
yeah, no.
He's got a 50%. I'll give you some percentiles on him, and this is publicly available information, by the way. 52nd percentile max exit velocity. He makes zone contact in the zone in the 90th percentile. 65th percentile against secondaries. And he's got really good understanding of the strike zone. Very good at not chasing pitches outside the zone. 92nd percentile chase rate. There's a lot of really interesting skills here, especially for a backup catcher. And one that I think can definitely be a starter in a pinch for a month or two, which, I mean, that's a heck of a developmental job for the Yankees. They were able to trade Narvaez for some goodies in the offseason because they feel confident in JC Escara, not Alex Jackson.
Yeah, Alex Jackson, like he might be a good defensive catcher. I think he is, but he can't. He hasn't proven he can hit anything. Like I'd much rather Escara have the bat in his hands than Alex Jackson. Like that's not even a debate question or like conversational topic for me. Like honestly, like Escara he's playing the Caribbean Series too. Like he's done a lot of cool stuff, and he grew up a Yankees fan too. Like he used to like Tino Martinez, and now he might get to fill some of that void. His swing is perfect for Yankee Stadium too. Like that short porch is called his name, and like he could play a few other positions too.
His spray chart is very pull heavy oriented, which again, great news for a guy like him.
Yeah, so I'm really excited to see him hopefully win that job and head north with the team on opening day. That would be really fun. That would be one of the better stories you can have.
Hey, maybe you teach JC Escarra third base.
I would, people are talking about it. It's not the craziest I've seen in the world. He's played a few games there. I mean, freaking Didi Gregorius was out there today. People are saying to give him a glove to play third base. Like, that's how bad the situation's got.
Hey, he looks like he's still in shape, man.
Yeah, the thought has to
So,
cross your mind because how bad the competition is
I mean,
now.
let's get anyone off
Oh,
the.
God.
I mean, is A-Rod's still in pretty good shape, right?
Yeah, he looks like he can still play. So we touched on some stuff, and I'm going to transition to Mets soon, but this will be like one of my last Yankee things here. So
Yep.
we touched on some of these trades, and one of the catcher trades that happened. What are your thoughts on Fernando Cruz and this Yankees bullpen? Devin Williams, one of those surprise trades we didn't hear about either. So how do you feel this bullpen could raise its level of play from last year?
Yeah. So I'm gonna defer a lot of what I'm about to comment to a video that Lance Brzezowski put out on YouTube.
Okay.
He's a great follow, and I wholeheartedly agree with his assessment. The Yankees very clearly went after a certain type of reliever this offseason. And really they've been doing this for the last few years. They love guys that have a north-south profile, but more specifically, they love guys that have wipeout off-speed offerings. Devin Williams has a unicorn changeup. We all know that. Go look at his release of his changeup. It's insane. Fernando Cruz has a disgusting splitter. Absolutely disgusting. Jake Cousins has a really good arm side movement sinker, as we all know. Luke Weaver learned an off-speed pitch. They're very clearly targeting this kind of profile, and I think it makes sense when you think about it, because when you look at platoon splits for different pitch types, fastballs, not that much of a platoon split. Breaking balls have a massive split versus lefties and righties. So if you're a righty facing a lefty and you throw a breaker, that is not nearly as successful an offering on average as compared to an off-speed pitch. The reason is very simple. You have two-plane movement on off-speed pitches, right? A changeup has downward movement arm side. It works against same-side batters because it's dropping, right? It works against opposite-handed hitters because it's going and moving in the opposite direction, similar to what a breaking pitch would do from a same-side pitcher. So you're able to create an offering that works really well against both lefties and righties. And basically the idea here is that we don't want to have to mix and match our relievers. We want to have guys that have pitches that sink, so that way either A, guys swing over the top of it, or B, they pound it into the ground. And you're hoping that with Jazz and Volpe and Goldschmidt, those are three very solid defenders. You're hoping that they're going to be able to eat most of that stuff up that is put into play. So they very clearly went after a kind of pitcher where, again, like, because they get both lefties and righties out, there's not as much of a, man, we really need another lefty besides Tim Hill. You really don't with these kinds of guys. So I think it's actually a very good approach. And I've always thought their approach with the bullpen has been superb. And I think Matt Blake is a big reason for that. I think he's the best pitching coach in baseball.
He's outstanding.
He's outstanding. Truly like the best pitching coach in baseball. I have no question about that. And I would be shocked if he didn't have some input here with these kinds of guys. The other thing too is that these guys have fastballs that normally you want your fastballs to be up in the zone because it has that rising action, right? And so guys can't get over the top of it, so they swing underneath it. But with these guys, and also with the Dodgers and a lot of other smart teams recently, they're putting their fastballs in spots similar to where they would start their off speed. So, for example, if I have a splitter, I'm going to start it at your knees, and it's going to drop below your knees. A lot of these guys are going to throw fastballs at the knees, but because it's not breaking down, it's going to stay there. So it's going to create a better tunneling action in a more direct part of the zone, where it's not like one pitch is here and another pitch is here. It's like one pitch stays right below the knees and the next one just slightly dives. so it creates a better tunneling action. So those are the real strengths of this bullpen. And I think more than anything, it's a different approach from almost any other bullpen. Every other bullpen's just trying to get every single power arm they can that has a ridiculous fastball and a slider. And the Yankees are going against the curve. They're usually a couple of years ahead of the curve when it comes to bullpen construction. It looks like they've done that again here.
Yeah, that's the one thing you have to say they're at the top of their game with. Although last year there were a lot of Clay Holmes issues, which they won't have to deal with this year. Kind of got unlucky too, like just really bad situations, bad contact, bad defense, the mix of everything being bad, and like controls sometimes too, which is on him. But I like the thing you said about not having to rely on too many lefties. Although one guy I'm really interested in is Tyler Matzik. How do you feel that the Yankees can do with him? You think he has anything left?
Tough to say. I mean, he's coming off an injury. He was a very good reliever for a while. It was a really good story coming back from years and years of significant injuries. I don't know. I wish I could give you a better answer, but I really just need to see what the radar gun says.
No, it's all good. I just figured I would ask because I like the move. It's not a bad shot.
It's a minor league deal. I mean, there's no risk in this. And he has been a pretty good reliever as of even 2 years ago. So
yeah, exactly. He got some big outs in that World Series run too. So let's go to the Mets now. Let's go to some of their young guys. Like, how do you feel about Brett Beatty, like Ronnie Mauricio, and Acuna Jr. too? Like, which one of those guys do you think has the highest ceiling?
Oh, the highest ceiling for sure, I think, is Ronnie Mauricio. I think when you have the 70 grade raw power that he does, it's hard not to say that he doesn't have that level of upside. Brett Beatty, you know, I want to believe, and there's still part of me that does believe he can put it all together.
I think
because if he does, you're looking at a guy with plus power. He could have an average hit tool, strikes out an average amount, plays a good defensive third base. There have been some questions about his willingness to make adjustments with data. I don't know how I feel about that, honestly. I'm not saying he's a bad guy. Every indication is that he's a great guy, but perhaps less of a willingness to listen to what the data is saying. Mm-hmm. He also hits the ball on the ground a lot, and doesn't really have the attack angle of his swing to be conducive to lift the ball in the air. And that's always been the frustration there, because the exit velocities have always been there. The hard hit rates have always been there, but it's not really valuable when you pound the ball into the ground 110 miles an hour. So the thing with Mauricio is that he does lift the ball. He does hit it hard. His two things are that he hasn't been healthy. He had some complications from a really bad knee injury even last year.
Yeah.
And he chases at a absurd rate outside the zone. Now, I think some of that is just him being aggressive, as more so than poor pitch recognition, because he's also incredibly aggressive inside the zone with his swing. So it's not like he's not swinging at strikes and swinging at balls. He's just swinging at everything.
Well, he has the Javi bias syndrome.
Right. So, yeah. But I do think Mauricio presents a better upside case. I think he can be a good third baseman. And Acuna, like, I don't know, like, what is the one thing that he does that's like a true carrying tool?
As a defense,
I don't know.
Maybe. I don't know. If you look at defense, I think he's a good defender, but I'm not sure about his offense either.
He's more versatile than good at any one position.
Fair.
He's I forgot what that term is, but he plays a lot of positions. Good at many, master of none,
like
or
the
whatever.
Swiss Army knife almost type of
yeah,
deal. Like
he's a bit of a Swiss Army knife. He has good swing decisions. A little passive inside the zone, though, so it borders on passivity compared to selectivity. There is a difference there in your swing decisions. So he's a little bit passive. Doesn't have anywhere near the power that his brother has. It's not even a comparison. We're talking about Ronald at his peak had 80 grade raw power. Luis Angel might have 30 grade power, which is comfortably below average. So I thought Acuna was going to be dealt. I also thought Beatty was going to be dealt. Them bringing back Alonso, I think, makes that a bigger possibility in spring training. They also have Jared Young, who is a KBO return who showed some real improvement while in Korea, who
Right.
also plays third base. So there's a scenario where maybe even the Yankees swing a trade for Brett Beatty somewhere. I mean,
I wouldn't hate it at this point. I'll tell you. I think I've told you that as well. I'd definitely be open to that one.
right, exactly. So, if you can find a good spot for Beatty, you get a solid return that you like, or Acuna. Um, I think they have to consider that at this point for one of those guys.
Yeah.
Because if you send them down to AAA, you're just going to taint their value even more. So
Yeah, they have a surplus since Alonso's back, and Vientos is going to be a third baseman, and like they can only rotate so many DHs with Winker and Marte still around. So maybe they trade Marte too, open some of that up, but we'll see.
right, and again, like Marte was another long term low AAV play, because they signed him for they signed him for 2 years too long. As
I
far
think it
as
was 5 for 80, right? Something like that, or like five for
yeah,
100, maybe. Oh yeah, some or 480. I don't know, but yeah, we're seeing those come back to bite. Someone asked me if the Yankees should start doing more of those. I said no, they need to stop doing those.
wait, they asked you what?
Someone asked me if the Yankees should start doing more of those because the luxury tax starts. I was like, no. I was like, absolutely not.
I
I'm like,
mean,
we're
that's
trying.
those contracts are the exact reason why.
It's
One of the reasons why Juan Soto is not a Yankee anymore. So
I get why they did it for Max Fried, unfortunately, because like they're trying to fit money again. Like, I'm not saying I advise it, but I understand why they did it. It wasn't the
right,
smartest
I
thing.
can understand while also vehemently disagreeing.
Yeah, that's like
So
kind of where we're at with this offseason, I think. Although there's I don't understand either. So we brought up Sprout before. I think he's a really intriguing guy. Another guy I really want to hear what you think about is Jet Williams. Like they're top dogs. Like, how do you feel about these guys?
yeah, with Spro, it's interesting because he's got a really good slider. That's his bread and butter pitch. But his fastball, he throws it hard. He's got good extensions, so it looks even faster because it's covering a shorter distance between his release and home plate. That's the idea of extension. So if you have good extension and you throw 94, it's going to look more like 97 because you're releasing it closer to home plate, right? That makes sense.
Yeah.
So he has good extension, which makes up for kind of a dead zone fastball. What I mean by that is that it has below average rising action. And so it drops a little bit more than the average fastball, which is not good. You don't want that. But because he has good extension and good velocity, it tracks like an above average pitch instead of, the 70 grade fastball that you might think given how hard he throws, right?
Okay.
So that's kind of the idea. There's still a good pitch. I mean, look, he throws 97. 97 is 97 as a starter, right? The slider is very, very good. That's going to be his bread and butter. Changeup is definitely a work in progress. But the thing that makes him so interesting is that he does have a pretty good feel for the zone. That is a combination I really like. If you have good fastball velocity and good command, that's a really good baseline for a pitcher. I also think that there's some continued developmental gains there. Specifically, like if he's able to maximize his changeup, which I think is possible. He comes from the University of Florida, which even though they've had a lot of really good pitchers come through their ranks in previous years, there have been a lot of cases where guys have gone into professional tutelage and had a lot of developmental gains, which to me seems like Florida's not maximizing their pitchers. They're not doing a good job of really developing them as much as they are kind of rostering them. And that's always the case for taking a guy from Florida. Sprout seems to be one of those cases where there's a lot of gains to be had in professional tutelage. And I think we're just kind of scratching the surface there. Jed is interesting. He's got a good swing decisions, good power, good speed, and good footwork for defense. The only problem is that he doesn't really have the arm for short. So he's kind of going to be a guy where either he plays second base or he plays center field, which I suppose is doable for the Mets. They could really use a good center fielder right now because they don't really want Brandon Nimmo playing left center field. They want him playing either left or right, depending on where they play Soto. You know, and Nimmo can be a good defender in either of those corner spots, but they don't want Brendan Nimmo playing center field at
Not anymore.
31, 32, at least anymore. So if Jet can play a good center field, that's a really good player. A guy that plays a premium position with above average power and above average swing decisions. That's a heck of a ball player. When he was in the draft, I think it was in 2023. Correct me if I'm wrong. 2022 or 2023. There were scouts. There were scouts that were convinced that were he not 5'6", 5'7" like he is, and more like 5'11", that he would have been the first overall pick that year.
Oh, wow. Yeah, he was 2022, and he took him 14th, and that's still a really high pick. So, no, I think he has a future with the Mets. I think he's probably a guy they want to keep out of trade talks. Center field has kind of been a revolving door for them. No one consistently grabbing that spot. Second base, I think, is also going to be open too, kinds of, unless Mauricio takes it maybe, because McNeil's kind of getting up there. I don't know how much more he has left with them. So, like, center might be the spot, though, because, like, that is, like, a more solidified opening. But I think we'll definitely see Sprout this year, too, especially considering what they're dealing with now. So it'll be interesting to see what he does.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you know, even the Mets for getting Soto, Jesse Winker is still their DH. I mean, that's not exactly
lights out. Yeah.
Yeah. And Jose
like,
Siri.
Okay.
Yeah. Like Jose Siri is a sensational defender who has a 20 grade hit tool, like bottom of the scale hit tool, and also a bottom of the scale personality in that clubhouse. So there's definitely someone. Yeah. We'll leave it at that. We won't get into that right now. But,
no, like I don't even need to know.
I mean, like,
Chloe, I could just see.
You know, right. Yeah. So look, the Mets are definitely a better team than the Yankees at this point. There's no question about it. But if Jose Siri is your backup center fielder or backup outfielder, defensive substitution, you feel pretty good about that. Starting outfielder, kind of a stretch. Maybe he strikes out a little bit less this year. Maybe he makes – I think he's the only player in baseball with a certain amount of plate appearances that had less than a 70% zone contact rate, to put that into perspective as to how much he swings and misses.
Oof.
If he's able to get his zone contact to even 70, he could be a very good player. But we've also been saying that for almost half a decade now, and he's almost 30. So
yeah, he's another one that looks like he's kind of stuck in his patterns. So I would say
good defender, you know, probably better than Harrison Bader, but
I think
there's a path for Jet Williams here.
Yeah, I agree with you. So, like, you think the Mets are better overall? Because I think the Yankees are definitely much better pitching. And if you look at the starting rotation and the bullpen, I'm definitely taking the Yankees group over the Mets group. But the Mets lineup, it definitely clears the Yankees lineup, and their bench probably does too, honestly.
By many, many multiples, yes. It's significantly better. Like, it's not close.
Yeah, the lineup's
their rotation isn't going to be great. It's not going to be as bad as people think, though.
Yeah, it could be like middle of the road, maybe.
Yeah, and their bullpen's a little bit better than you're also giving credit for. I mean, Jose Budo could be a potential relief ace for them. Reed Garrett was a breakout guy for them last year, came out of nowhere. I think there's a case for Ryan Stanek to have a little bit of a bounce back as well. They also have a lot more depth than the Yankees do. I mean, that's the other thing that we keep talking about here. The Yankees have no real legitimate hitting prospects unless you're hoping for Spencer Jones to really break out. They just don't really have anything. Yorbit Vivas isn't going to do it. Spencer Jones isn't going to do it. I'm missing a lot of other guys, but that's by design. You know, the Mets have a lot of depth across their position players and across their pitchers. That's the case for why they're going to be a better team over the course of 162 games than the Yankees.
So give me your projection for Mets wins and losses in the regular season, like where you see them going. Like, give me an estimate to be perfect.
Yeah. So if we just go to the projections for Zips, which is Fangraphs normal projections here. Let me see if I can pull those up. The 2025 projected standings For the NL East, let's see. So they're projected to finish second right now in the division with 89 wins. So if I gave you projected standings, Mets have 89 wins over the course of the season. Are you taking the over, the under on that?
I'm going up. I'm gonna go up personally.
I'm with you on that one. Oh, I'm sorry. They actually have the Phillies and the Braves both ahead of the Mets, which I'm not.
Oh no,
sure
I saw Mets second too. I thought I saw the Mets second as well, and they have Phillies under them. But like, I think there's some different sites. Personally, in my opinion, it's Phillies first, Mets second, Braves third. That's how I'm looking at it right now.
Yeah. I think the Mets are going to win that division. I do.
Okay, you're going for the win. Interesting. I do.
The
Phillies pitching.
I think they beat the Rangers. I think they beat the Braves by a couple of games because the thing with the Braves, they have this great core. They have I do think they have a better lineup, assuming that Ronald Acuna is at least, let's call it 80% of 2023 Ronald Acuna. That's a better lineup than the Mets have at this point.
I agree with
no
that.
cap. But they also have a situation like the Yankees where their hitting depth is abysmal. Now their pitching depth is exceptional. Really good. But they have no hitting. Nacho Alvarez is their top hitting prospect, and he might be a league average hitter if it all shapes out.
I know you did a lot of Braves work, so I know you know what you're talking about here.
Yeah. So you're kind of betting on all the Braves regulars playing 140 games like they did in 2023, which, I mean, they did it 2023. It means they can do it in 2024, but 2025. But look at last year. I mean, they barely made the playoffs because they had such poor position player depth beyond the stars that they had. They got 99th percentile outcomes from Marcell Ozuna and Reynaldo Lopez and a bunch of other guys, and they barely scraped into the playoffs. So assuming they stay somewhat healthy, I do think they're still a very good team, no question. Yeah. But are they the best team in that division? Like, I don't know about that.
Yeah, I would say that I put the Mets right in like the 93 to 95 win range, probably.
I think that's within reason. Yeah, like if they were in like the NL Central, they'd be
games.
Exactly. It's just such a good division, aside from the Marlins.
Yeah, because I think the Phillies are tough, and I think they're going to be right at the top. I think the Nationals are being slept on a little bit. I would have liked to see them do more, but I think they're still okay.
I agree with that. A lot of the projections are tanking them. Their Fangraphs is projecting 73 wins. That seems pretty light. I would say maybe they're a 79-80 win, like just barely below 500. But for that to be a fourth place team in the division is pretty indicative of how competitive it is.
Yeah, right in that 500 class is where I would put them too. That makes good sense. So let's go to our team, the Yankees. What's your projected record, and where's your division standing?
Well, again, Fangraphs projects them to have the most wins in the AL East, which is 87. Which, I mean, it tells you the parity of that division. But just for context, the Yankees projected for 87, Red Sox 85, Orioles 83. Blue Jays 82, Rays 82.
That's nuts. That's all. So
everyone
close.
projects with a above 500 record there, which is ludicrous. I don't know though. Like it's the same thing with the Braves, where they need all their stars to stay healthy. And I asked this question in a poll on Twitter. I think it was last week or 2 weeks ago. If they lose Aaron Judge for even a month, are they able to sustain even a wild card team?
No, I don't think so.
I don't think so.
We saw what happened in 2023, and the way this team is built now, they need Aaron Judge to play 140 to 150 games minimum. He can't miss like more than 20 games, so he's going to be huge. Like this is like the most crucial season he's had probably. You think about how he failed in the World Series and the playoffs, and like what's on him now. Like this has to be like one of his bigger seasons. He's had big seasons, he's been great. Just has to do it when it counts and the lights turn on, and we'll see if he gets his chance this year. But like with everything else that's behind him or not behind him, for a lack of a better term, like they really need him this year more than ever.
Yeah, it's 100% true. And, it also just speaks to how different the Dodgers are run from the Yankees, because the Dodgers lost Mookie Betts for 2 months last year.
And they were fine. We don't even
Nothing, like
remember.
nothing
I don't
happened.
even remember.
Right, you don't remember because they're that good. I think if the Mets lost
Soto, let's say.
Soto for a month or two, probably more of an impact, but I think they'd still at least be able to backfill that a
Scrap.
heck of a lot better than the Yankees can. Like we're talking about like some of the worst depth that the Yankees have had in a long time. A long time.
Yeah,
It's not good.
you're going from Aaron Judge to Everson Pereira and possibly Brendan Davis, and Trent Grisham. Like that's a massive drop off. Like that's just unreal.
It really is. I'm just like, I know part of this is that the Yankees in previous years have gone really heavy in pitchers, maybe even outside of the first round, they go really heavy pitching. I know they went
Yeah,
with Spencer Jones in 2022, and they went with George Lombard in 2023. But beyond that, it's been a lot of pitchers. So, yeah, I mean, like you're talking about guys on the 40-man roster that are depth pieces. Ben Rice, we talked about him. He's probably the one guy I feel good about filling in for an injury. JC Escara, like him, right? But then you start going into Yorbit Vivas, Oswald Peraza, who I'm not even sure really likes baseball. Jesus Rodriguez, okay? Like, those are the options right now in
he
AAA. Like,
hasn't even gotten to AAA Jesus either. Like,
Jesus Rodriguez got a cup of coffee in AA.
yeah, like
Like,
this
I
is a
think
crazy
90.
situation.
Yeah. I don't know. And then you start getting into some of the other prospects that could theoretically pop up. Rafael Flores was my minor league hit of the year, but he's also a bit of a catcher and first baseman. Like, doesn't really play the middle infield. Rock Riggio, one of their better middle infield prospects. I mean, he's probably at best AAA depth.
Yeah,
That's just the predicament they find themselves in right now.
yeah, like you can't even have a third baseman in this system for I don't know how many years. I haven't developed a third baseman like so many times. Like Tyler Harmon can't play defense to save his life, even if he could, even if he wasn't like a 2 outcome hitter.
Right.
Chaparro was a great hitter, but his defense was lacking. But he could hit the ball. But
I like Chaparro, man.
I know they should. I would rather him than what we're seeing now. Honestly, I would take the rough defense because at least I know the guy can swing the bat, and he wouldn't. He would have given a productive at bat in the lineup. I definitely do miss him as well. So, their third base situation is awful. Maybe Lombard in a few years, but he's way too far out to think about now. So we'll see.
Right. Yeah. Like if you're having to have these conversations about prospects when talking about the major league system,
Not good.
you've probably done something wrong. So,
Yeah, like I just can't believe how bare their bench is. Like they have like 7 8 serviceable hitters, maybe. If you want to throw JC in the mix, that gives you 9, but still you don't have a third baseman in that mix, so it's really 8. And like it's just not that's just not sufficient. Like how do you spend over $300 million and that's what you come up with? Like it's really bad.
again, like some of the resource allocation in the middle tier of their roster,
It's
I'm going to
terrible.
keep harping back on this. It's some of the worst in baseball. It just is.
Like, and the thing is, like, if Cashman how does Hal just let Cashman keep doing this if he doesn't want to go over the tax and he just doesn't like I don't know like he just doesn't really care to win that much I guess like I don't
Again,
even
like
know what it is. It's just about the profits for him. Like he wants to get close. Like he doesn't want to like win the World Series. Like I don't even know. He can't expect his teams to win the World Series. Like that's just not realistic.
the thing about Cashman is if you made him the GM of the Dodgers, I think he'd be just as successful as Andrew Friedman.
Yeah, that could be
Like
true.
here's the thing. He might be falling a little bit behind on the developmental analytics curve, right? He's been in baseball for a very long time. I'm not going to say it's not happening, but there is less margin for error in that if he signs a bad contract, Hal is not going to allow him the opportunity to potentially make another mistake. Whereas the Dodgers, they can make a mistake and they're just going to fix it by spending money.
Right. And the Mets too, like they did with Scherzer and Verlander.
Exactly. Like
So
those
like,
contracts didn't really work out. Like, yeah, the Mets have Luis Angel Acuna, but like that's not really like a game-changing player,
no,
as we
and
talked about.
yeah, Drew Gilbert, like I don't know what he's gonna be either. So
Yeah, his profile collapsed last year, but
yeah,
um, you know, so my point is though that Cashman has a lot of hits, has a lot of misses, but he's not given the flexibility to really make up for those with further additions in free agency. Hal kind of looks at it as we made a mistake. We need to live with that mistake and we need to work around that mistake.
and it doesn't work, and
It,
he keeps trying to do the same thing, and it's not working. Like, and then sometimes he'll let him go over, and then like it's still like something's missing. Like it never gets fully completed. And then the issue is now they're gonna hold their hands up at the trade deadline and be like, "Oh, we tried to get a third baseman, the prices were too high." Like we had those conversations. Like how many times have we heard that? Like they can't. They need to get a third baseman probably sooner than July. But if they don't at least get one by then, I don't even know what to say.
I know that they're almost every website is marking them as a first place team. I got to be honest, like I think Fangraphs got part of this right in that they're talking about how stacked the AL East is. Not a single team below 500 in their rankings. I do agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
With that being said, though, I think there's also the case where if the Yankees take their foot off the pedal at any point because of injury or Judge goes in a slump, there's a non-zero chance they finish in last place. Like I'm just gonna come out and say it.
Yeah, because like the Rays and Blue Jays aren't awful. Like they could
They're
both
not
be around 500.
exactly. They're not awful. And if the Blue Jays decide to go gung ho at the trade deadline because they're gonna have one last hurrah with Vladdy, there's a chance the Yankees finish in last there. The
Yeah,
Rays have the best farm system in baseball. The Orioles have a top 10, and they have two top 10 overall prospects still to come in Sam Basayo and Kobe Mayo. The Red Sox have the best farm system in baseball. So that right there, you have a division with three of the top 10 farm systems in baseball. And then you also have the Blue Jays, who are one of the richest teams in baseball.
and they're desperate.
And they're desperate. Exactly. So, Yankees have an unfortunate predicament of very bad farm system, poor depth, and very little willingness from ownership to get it over the hunch.
It just doesn't make any sense. You look at all the stuff that's happening with Judge's prime closing, with Cole's prime closing, like the way they lost to the Dodgers, like the World Series window, like the 15 years, like on all that you're gonna throw away just for a stupid tax. Like I just don't get it. It's not like they can't afford to pay either. That's what people need to understand. Like the penalties, the Dodgers deal with the penalties, and what happens to the Dodgers? They win anyway. And the Mets deal with the penalties, they get Juan Soto. So like if they're doing what the Yankees should be able to too. And like again, like they make more money than any other team. Like that's the thing that's really frustrating about this. Like him crying poor say we can't spend like the Dodgers is absolutely pathetic. Like it just is.
Yeah. And one thing I'll add on to that is that even though the Yankees are the highest revenue generating team in baseball, if you're looking at just the owners themselves, Hal is actually one of the poorest owners.
That is true. You know what? That is true. I'll give you that.
So,
that is a good point.
But that's not an excuse because all the money that he gets to spend is generated by the Yankees.
Right.
Because again, they're
that's
the
also
Yankees.
true. You are right. That's his income source. Yeah.
Right. So what this ultimately boils down to, Julian, is that they need, I'm just gonna say it, they need a new owner that is Steve Cohen level wealthy. That's a diehard Yankees fan that can leverage both the Yankees resources and his own resources to get it over the hump.
Yeah.
That's whether you like it or not as a fan, that is the direction that the league is going of super mega wealthy owners.
Right. The Dodgers too. Yeah. Guys
right.
Really
so
well
whether you like it or not, that's where the game is going. The Yankees need that. And it doesn't look like it's going to happen anytime soon because there's a lot of different family members still of the Steinbrenners, the second and third generation now have control of the team. And yeah, that's the hard thing with passing down baseball teams through families.
All right. Well, we're gonna get going soon. I'm gonna end on this note, and then I'll tell them where they can find you. So, I'm definitely worried about the Boston Red Sox. I think if people aren't worried about the Red Sox, they're fooling themselves. Like Alex Bregman was like the final piece to like put fear into a little bit, because he's a Yankee killer. He hits well at the ballpark. He's gonna thrive off that. The fans are gonna boo him at all time highs. He's not gonna care, and
probably should have just signed him.
That's a possibility as well. Would have did a 2-for-1. Would have kept him from there, and would have helped a huge hole at third base. Yeah, my biggest issue with the Red Sox is their bullpen. I think their bullpen's been in pretty rough shape, and Chapman closing games is going to be pretty ironic too, if that's what they do. But if they had that pen 5 years ago, Liam Hendricks in the role with Chapman, I'd be a little more scared. But no, I think they're the second best team in the division right now. I can see a path for them winning it too if the Yankees don't get it together.
Yeah, I mean, they have two of the top 3 prospects in baseball, and Roman Anthony and Christian Campbell. Those are 2 exceptionally good prospects right there that you could add to a lineup that you could argue is
better than the Yankees lineup.
Deeper than the Yankees lineup right now. Like, obviously you'll take Judge over Devers, but are you taking Goldschmidt over Casas? I'm not.
No
Are
way.
you taking Bregman? Clearly, I mean, okay, for argument's sake, let's just compare Bregman to Jazz. I don't know. I'd take I'd take Bregman there.
Yeah, I'd probably still take Bregman too, even though you'll get more stolen bases with Jazz. Bregman's done in October, so that's the deciding factor if you had a tiebreaker, probably.
Yeah. Now, fans are not going to like this one, but I'm taking Jarren Duran over Jason Dominguez, at least for this year.
Oh, yeah, no, that's a logical take. Jarren Duran's a monster, dude. Like, if you're looking at the Red Sox round, like, I would really like him way more if he was not the Red Sox, but he's a really well-rounded player. I'm not going to disagree with that.
Yeah, I agree. Cedane Rafaela over versus Cody Bellinger.
That's like that's splitting hairs. Maybe.
Kind of a wash there because Bellinger. Right, like Rafaela, if he gets even to a 90 WRC plus, is going to be better than Bellinger this year because of his defense.
Yeah, because everything else,
right, everything else except the bats there. I'll take Austin Wells over Connor Wong. I feel pretty confident about that one.
I'll go with that.
I think that's a safe one. Yeah. Right field, Wilyer Abreu versus Aaron Judge. Clearly.
Oh,
Judge.
Yeah. We got that. I think he's got that one.
But again, shortstop Story versus Volpe. I'll probably take Volpe. But look, like you're talking about like 4 or 5 going in favor of the Red Sox.
Yeah,
the others go in favor. And their rotation, like, are we sure that the Yankees have a better rotation than the Red Sox?
You would like to think, but are you fully sure? It's okay. We can take Cole over Crochet. I think that's a safe one. Fried.
Wait, you said Cole over Crochet?
Yeah, I'll say Cole over Crochet. No, you don't think? You think Cole's going the wrong way?
I would probably take Crochet at this point.
All right, I'll disagree there. But how about the 2, Fried and Bueller? Is that where we're at?
I would take Fried there.
Yeah, I think that's a safe one.
I would probably take Tanner Houck over Carlos Rodon.
That's fair. I'll give you that one. I'll take Luis Hill over whatever they're offering though for the 3
Ryan
or 4.
Baio, sure. Yeah. Cutter Crawford is probably Cutter Crawford and Clark Schmidt. Like, I might give a slight advance to Schmidt, but
you're splitting hairs there,
right? But again, like the whole argument here, as we're going through this exercise, is that
it is close.
The starting, like the top tier of players, the starters, it's a bit of a wash. But once you get below that, it's not even a competition. The Red Sox are clearly better. So again, the whole argument against the Yankees being good this year is you guys are going to get sick and tired of this, but it really is. But it's just true. We saw it in 2023. They had no depth. Billy McKinney and Jake Bowers were playing regular for the Yankees.
Calhoun.
We are like dangerously close to getting Dom Smith getting regular action.
He's like right there. It's literally right here.
Calhoun, Jake Bowers, and Billy McKinney. Just remember those 3 names.
Yeah.
You're going to get to that level of guy very quickly with another injury.
The Red Sox bench is so much better because you look at the prospects like the Anthonys and the Marcel Mayers. The Yankees have nothing close to that that's close to the MLB right now. Like Spencer Jones' best case scenario is probably a late season call, but probably more towards next year. I would estimate you probably agree with that.
Yeah.
And then the last thing I'll say about the bullpen, I feel like the Yankees have a nice edge in the bullpen, though. I'll give them a strong bullpen edge.
I would agree. I would agree with that. Like, you probably wouldn't want to be betting on the Red Sox having 3 guys 36 or older in their bullpen. Probably not the way I'd build a bullpen, but
I'm kind of surprised they didn't do more there because everything else looks pretty solidified. Like they have a trade in them probably with all those prospects you mentioned to get like an elite bullpen arm at some point.
Definitely possible. It's one of the easier things to acquire at the deadline.
Yeah. Surprised Finnegan's still out there. I don't want to give him a look, maybe.
It's possible. I could see them trading for Ryan Helsley.
That's a big
see
one.
them trading for Emmanuel Clase. Like,
whoa. Hopefully not that one. But Helsley, I could see. If the Guardians trade Clase, like, I don't know what his contract looks like, but man.
He's going to be a free agent sooner than you think.
Yeah, so they'll do it eventually. You're probably right. All right. Well, Smith, this was amazing. We got so many good insights here. We went through the peaks and valleys of all the Yankees stuff. Got as much Mets stuff as we could. So tell everyone where they could find you at.
Yeah, appreciate it, Julian, and appreciate all the listeners. But you guys can find me on Twitter at Smith Brickner. No spaces, no nothing. Just at Smith Brickner. I'll try to post more throughout the coming weeks. I'm going to be in Florida for about 5 days covering spring training and specifically the spring breakout game between the Yankees and the Orioles in Sarasota. So that's going to be good. And then I'm also going to do some coverage for some of the teams based in Arizona. So a lot of scouting, got my radar gun ready to go. So it's going to be a fun time. But yeah, find me on Twitter at Smith Brickner. All
right, guys, thank you so much. It's been a fun one. We definitely got everything in we needed to. So I'll catch up with you soon. Thank you so much, and I'm looking forward to spring and seeing how the season goes.
Yeah. Thank you, guys.
All right. Let me see if I can do this.